Hey, welcome to another episode of JD and Len called the GenX guys. Totally screwed up the intro, but it's fine.
It's
fine.
you know what? It's episode what 101 now. So
It
yeah,
is.
yes,
The 101st.
let's go with that going forward. I like.
So once you hit 100, it is all downhill from there. Basically, what I'm saying.
I thought that's when you hit 50.
For us, it was probably more like 40. It's downhill from there.
We peaked at like 30, 35.
It's more like 25, basically.
Wait, yeah, when were our kids born?
We peaked when we were born. That's been pretty much it. It's downhill since.
I know, ever since.
Jesus.
That was the best version of me. Was at 1 year old.
The 1 year, yeah. Easiest point in my life when I couldn't remember it.
Really was
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. If you could, when do you think was your peak, or what do you think was like the quote unquote? There's
what do we define as our peak,
or even like what do you think is the best time of your life? Like, I mean, there's a lot of different times that you can look at, but
yeah, there's a lot of good times. I think the best time in my life was probably my 20s to early 30s, primarily because my whole family was around. So my mother passed away in my mid 30s.
Yeah.
So anything before that is probably the best of time because she was there with my grandkids and everything. With her grandkids.
I know what you meant though.
And the whole family was around. So that's probably the best time. My grandmother was around. We were still doing all the traditional stuff that you were so used to growing up. He continued to carry on. So yeah, that's probably my peak as far as from.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same.
The best of time. I mean, like I said, I've had good moments and great moments over the years. But yeah, as far as having everything, being selfish for myself, yeah, that was the time.
Of course. Yeah, I'd probably say I think our times probably coincided. It was also, I always think of those when we used to go to Disneyland like 2 to 3 times a year. Especially we were just talking about that. We were talking about like, oh, we've never gone during 4th of July. Like I was trying to figure out, like, we did the Thanksgiving, the Christmas, the New Year's. But yeah, they're just, we were kind of wondering times, but I always remember those trips. We couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
You were exhausted by time that you got done with it,
right.
But we still did it 2 to 3 times a year.
Yeah.
But those were some fun times, like with the double stroller, trying to get through, trying to keep the kids awake for the fireworks shows at night.
Well, it's funny. The 2 times we would go though were more holiday season. Remember, around Thanksgiving time.
Mm-hmm.
And so seasonally it was nice because the Christmas stuff was up and that was always cool.
Right.
But yeah. But then the weather would rain a bit more. The double strollers were fun with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Running around, pushing as fast as we can, racing with them.
I just remember then the one toy I would always remember we would always get, or we got it frequently, of those. Remember the one you press it had the LED at the end of it, so when they spun, it had like the little light show type thing at the end of it. It was like a propeller.
Oh, a spinning toy?
When you press about it, the spinning toy, and it had the light on it, so when you turn it on, it was this light circle.
That's right.
Some of those things like that, and then of course, those were good times though. Taking our oldest sons on It's a Small World to torture them.
Right. Yeah. Well, when they're young, they loved it. As they're older, they don't care for it. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't remember. I only remember them hating it. And the best one was we forced them to, like, one of the last times I think we took them on, we forced them to get on, and it breaks down like 3/4 of the way through it, and they were a little bit bitter. But funny to us.
That's right. It stopped. That was even better.
Yeah.
That was like the best ride possible. It stopped on the exit, so we were still hearing the music clearly as we're waiting to have the boat roll around. That was fun. That was fun times for you and I, at least. Misery for them, but fun for us.
Yeah. Overall, it was. But also, that was like those times where, you hear all the complaints about Disneyland today. The overcrowded, the way that you go through it. It was a simpler time. I mean, you still had to wait in lines. You do the fast pass, but it used to work back then. It would get crowded, but it was never. I don't remember it back then, at least, it ever getting to the point where like, let's like leave or anything like that. It was, even though it was a holiday season, it never really ever felt overcrowded. And you had to, like, for certain rides like Indiana Jones or whatever, you might have to wait the full hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever. But you could time it. It was like, you get the early park entrance, go in and you would run straight to Indiana Jones or whatever one you want to do right away. And then you would just kind of time the rest of the day. It was like, especially, you and your wife, you guys had it down pat. So we would just kind of follow your lead and it worked. But nowadays,
we'd send the kids off early with the tickets and go, hey, go fast pass this ride for us. And they'd run up and get the fast pass tickets. Because by the time we'd get over, then we'd have fast pass tickets that would be in like 30 minutes. And the ticket system did work. I know there's, people have different opinions out there, and that's fine. But this new structure sucks. I mean, there were a few times where we went to Disneyland during a seasonal period where it hit max capacity, and they wouldn't let anybody else in. And so, but even then, I mean, New Year's Eve
felt that full though.
Max capacity on like a New Year's Eve would suck because all of Main Street would just be packed, and so. You feel it in those cases, you're right. But in general, depending as you're moving around, like it was heavy and there'd be lines, but it didn't feel like super congested like it got years later with some of the stuff they did. And obviously the Caribbean and
what do you think made it felt so much like, because I remember those times. I remember because we always went like first thing in the morning. We were there like, either like
8 a.m. when it opened. Yep.
Yeah, but what do you think has changed to the point where, like, I just don't remember it hitting max capacity being that big of a deal, in the 2000s compared to how people talk about it today? Do you think that they've increased the number of people? Do you think it's the setup, layout? What do you think makes it so much worse today, or perception is so much worse?
Well, part of it is driven by cost, right? So when you're paying almost $190 a ticket to get in just to one park, right? That itself, now you get in there and you feel like it's more congested with the cost you paid. Like that just even makes it feel worse, right? So I think a lot of it is based on you're spending a lot of money and you're not getting a lot done. Like I spent all this money to come to this park and it's like not worth my time. Or rides are down, or you have to pay for Lightning Lane now, right? So instead, in the past, back to your point, Fast Pass was free. Everybody would just go around with their tickets, scan them, underneath a scanner, and it'd print out actual paper tickets with a return time, and that was it. It was pretty straightforward. It wasn't hard. Wasn't difficult. Sure, it was paper trail. I'm sure long term didn't make sense, but it was free. Then they got rid of that. Then they started making you pay for it and make it Lightning Pass. And so now you have Lightning Passes, which they let you book over a certain amount of time all through the app. So this whole event is now app driven, which is expected with every park. And anywhere you go nowadays, it's all app driven. Right. Now you have to pay for Lightning Lane. And then not every ride has Lightning Lane. That's part of that Lightning Lane you buy. There's the premium Lightning Lane you can buy individually for rides like, for instance, just like Star Wars, Rise of the Resistance would be one for Disney. Right. For Disney World, it could be others like Avatar or something like that, where you pay an additional cost on top of what you already paid for sort of your Lightning Lane pass. So they're tiering shit, and so all it does is back up the standby line even longer. And so now, I mean, that was always sort of the case, even with the Fast Pass tickets.
But again, now it's pay to win.
But now, now everybody pays for it because they almost have to. So now even the Lightning Lane is no longer fast in many cases. It can be just as long.
That makes
now
sense.
You're spending all this money.
Perception of value. You're spending more money and getting less value.
Correct. You're spending a lot of money and you're not actually, exactly. You're getting this value. You're not achieving your goals. Like you're doing less with paying more. And so, and then of course, cost of food and all that stuff. But I think the problem is that they're also doing construction a lot. So that creates walkway issues where it tightens up in certain spots. So there's that problem. It's all driven by the fact that, again, I know prices need to go up over time, but their pricing structures just jump dramatically. And the adding of Lightning Lane costs and all of that, it just makes no sense. Like, I mean, it does from a corp standpoint. Let's be clear. It's a money grab. They're trying to make revenue, but they're losing more people. Like, parks aren't packed as much anymore, especially on those heavy cost days. Much lighter.
They have dynamic pricing more now, right?
Correct.
Like so more so than before.
Right. Like I'll be out there, not this week, but the following week for Disney's big convention. They annual, or every 2 years, they come out with the D23 event.
Right.
And so we'll be at Disneyland on the 13th, which would be D23 day. So they'll give everybody out a hat, Mickey Ears hat that says D23. We don't care about that, but because we already got it, unless it's something unique this time, I'm not going to bother worrying about it this time. But like pricing for those tickets, they raked up, right? So they made it like 180 per ticket or something like that. But other times during the fall, when school starts, most weekdays will have like Tuesday through Thursday, or Monday through Thursday. Tickets can be $108 per day.
Wow.
So a sudden drop, and that's just to generate more interest. They've also introduced lately something new about SoCal, I believe, where after 5 o'clock, you can buy like a lower cost ticket to get the rest of the day in. So like $80 or something like that. I think that's SoCal, but that one I can't remember. So they're trying to do these tiered events, trying to get more people. But the problem is they're charging so much, and the experience is just so poor. Like it's just, again, to your point, you're not getting the value for what you're paying. So the change has been dramatic. I mean, they have 2 parks. Hell, we used to go before Disney California even existed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it was just Disneyland, and I still never felt like I was ever quite as entrenched as I get sometimes going there.
Yeah.
And that just ruins the experience. So a lot of people don't want to do it as much.
Well, I mean, for us, I would say you and your wife are still quote unquote Disney adults. Not how some are, but I mean, I think even like for us, even going back then, is the Disney experience was, as a family, it wasn't just even though we enjoyed it as individuals, it was still mainly something to be shared with the family. So
yeah,
it changes up, and like it's funny because we look at California as being just a different park altogether. I mean, yeah, I think it's obvious it is, but it's a different experience. It's like when you go there, it's for now Marvel, for Avengers, but it was Pixar. It wasn't the same experience, and it was like we went there. Like I think the last 2 times we went, we only did California, and
which blows my mind because I consider that to be the least useful amount of time that you can get anything. Like there's a few rides there that are worth doing. Obviously, Spider-Man. We all know your son and your family love Spider-Man, so that's just fine. But even that ride gets tedious pretty fast. Like
we went there for the opening of Avengers.
Right.
That's the last time we went. Actually, was the opening of Avengers.
You mean Spider-Man?
No, Avengers.
The whole Avengers campus. Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Oh, all right.
So we haven't. I mean, even for that, I mean, we haven't gone at all as a family. And again, part of it, I think, is just that whole idea of it's just there's not a draw as much as there used to be. But again, I think maybe it was underlined is that it just doesn't. There's a perceived value. Is you go to Disneyland, you don't go there just for a day unless you live in LA. You don't go just for a day. Right. And how much is 3 days at Disneyland for a group of 5?
I mean, the tickets reduce in price the more days you get, obviously, right? Like for a bigger group, if you do a single day, it's just straight price. If you do 3 days, it drops by like 10 to 15% overall. If you do a single day,
$500 a person, right? I mean, $500 to $600 a person for 3 days.
Right? Probably, yeah, probably depending on the time of year. Yeah,
it's $1,500, and then you have everything else that comes along.
But that's not how it used to be 20 years ago.
Yeah,
that cost.
No. I think even the cost of even for inflation, it just seems so much higher. I mean, yeah, we know that things are more expensive than they were back when we, just 20 years ago.
Right.
But it just seems like, and I think also as we've aged, I mean, there's other things that we'd rather do on a vacation. So it's always, it's one of those things. It's kind of like how we have our differences in what, vacation. You like your cruises, and I like more international travel. And it's not that I don't want to do a cruise or you don't want to do international travel. It's like, well, look, I have a week and it's already going to cost me $5,000 to do this. So it's like, which one are you going to do? So, but yeah,
I'd be happy spending my time just on an island personally, Hawaii specifically.
Yeah, but you don't want to leave.
No, I don't. No, I'd just stay there permanently. It'd be a benefit for me.
It's the whole money thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the usual, right? That's the driving factor for everything nowadays. It's money.
It always has been.
Yeah.
It's always kind of funny when you see people talk, especially like the younger ones. It's like, it's the same story, just written differently. It's no different than when we were growing up. And yeah, certain things are definitely hard. I don't like this whole thing of comparing generations because boomers went through something different than we went through, and Gen Z and Gen Alpha now are going through something different we are. I don't think it's harder. I think it's just different. I think the harder part for them is it's changing a lot faster and constantly changing, so it's harder to make those adjustments. For us, I think the adjustments were a little bit more gradual as we saw them.
True.
But yeah, but I think it's just always interesting kind of seeing the difference in generations, especially as Gen X, we perceive the world in a certain way. We look back at, how great our lives were in childhood war, and, but there's always going to be a bias that everybody thinks that their
Always
was the best time.
Of course.
It's expected.
I mean, there's some people who'd love to think that the simpler life would be nice, like back in the, early days of the frontier type scenario, which would not be easy by any means, by the way. Survival of your own, out there in the wilderness is not ideal. But for some, the simplicity of it more specifically, not so much the rigors of going through it to get there, but even those simpler times are always nice.
Simpler or slower, just not as...
Simple and slow. I mean, they were simpler.
Slow.
Yeah, I mean, everything continues to go at its own pace. That's true. I think, simpler. Yeah, I guess it depends on your perspective. Like you brought up a good point. Like you look at the Gen Z. I don't even know what the names of these things are anymore.
Right.
I give up on these generations. But the current generation, anybody between the age of like 15 to 25 right now.
Yeah,
or even our kids. Yeah, our kids as well. Like, is it harder than it was for us? It is, actually, for many reasons. One, because cost of living is much higher than it was. If you look closely to people's salary back in the 70s and 60s compared to what they are today, cost of living is much higher and less affordable. You also look at the fact that back in the day, the worst fear was automation, right? Like, so we talked about this in the past, like the car automation, the assembly lines, so to speak, when those started happening and people lost jobs. Now you got AI.
What was that movie?
Gung Ho. You're thinking of Michael Keaton.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was forgetting the name. I was like, Michael Keaton, and I couldn't remember.
I already knew what you were going with.
I was thinking, but that's what I mean. Like, things moved but we saw.
But even that was a change, right? To some point. But that was very specific industry only, right? Like, this was just the car industry automation.
But that's what I mean by it moving slower. Like, automation and computers took hold in certain industries, especially like in the late 70s and 80s,
right?
Pretty quickly. But I think overall, there was still this transition period where you had time to adjust. Where, look at for our sons, 10 years ago, we were like, they're getting into STEM. It was like, it's guaranteed. It was easy. It made sense. But STEM became questionable even, just over the last like 3 years. How did it go from being locked down, this is your career, this is what you do this and you automatically have a job, to now being, well, it depends, where across the board it's just not that simple. And so I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and to my point about AI, I was getting to basically in a lot, sort of saying to that point about the assembly line. You're right, that took time. That was a slow time coming. Computers need to still be built up to speed, but that's no longer the case here. Companies are legitimately dropping a third of their workforce immediately after only 2 years of AI being out there and saying, we're going to go AI. Not knowing the repercussion, not knowing the true benefits or value, just assuming this will help make worlds easier for them. And they start going that route. So now the market's being flooded. It's also taking much longer for people who are skilled. And of course, honestly, the older you are, it seems like it takes even longer. But it's like their struggles are more about exactly that. The speed pace has gone up so fast now that
that's the hard part.
It's hard for the current generation, for our kids and the generation growing up right now. Like, where do they focus their efforts that they can still make sure they'll always have a chance to have some sort of job or whatever is available to them? Because right now, tech industry chips, although we can talk into the whole open AI, admitting that, oh, hey, one of our AI what was it? One of the entities actually jumped
Oh yeah,
basically on its own and decided to just break into something on its own freely. The those sort of things are driving fast, and that's always been my point in the past. It's like technology is great, but when you drive technology without truly understanding the impact it'll have, and then you start to see a few years down, holy shit, this really sucks. This is screwing up so many things, or it's really had a negative impact on lifestyles and people and whatever.
right.
We don't care. We're like driven to just like quickly throw it out there because I want to make money and I think it'll be cool. And it's new, it's flashy, and then everybody's adopting it, especially more and more in today's generations, which is across the board, by the way. Everybody's always quickly jumping in, smartphones, whatever. Just as examples, that's not necessarily the problem.
Right.
But
No.
the point is, it's where development started for us, for the U.S. 250 years ago, to the last 50 years, I guess. It's just crazy, the development change.
Well, I think even the last 5 years. I mean, to your point with AI, and I think with everything, I always go back to the speed. Is there's also this where you see it like mainly in news, right? It's better to be first than right.
Right.
Where you see all these things about people or companies, and my company and other companies as well. You always see these things where they're talking about, they start talking about the numbers for efficiency and all this stuff, but it's like, but where's but then they start, now you could start seeing the things of, yeah, but quality is dropped, engagement is dropped, and just how does it work, how is it actually reflected upon the quality of your product and so on. So it's just kind of interesting that with all this stuff, and I use AI every day, and I think we've talked about this numerous times, is that even how much we use it and how useful it really can be. But like you said, this idea that we're just throwing it out there and just thinking that it can fit everywhere and in every use case. Like, I think the scariest part that it's being used as, and I think the biggest backlash or when government regulation happens is, the movie, The Social Network, Social Network 2 is coming out, right? And they're talking about the impact social media, Facebook and other Instagram and so on, had on young people and their psyche. Well, the fact that people are just turning to AI as a therapist, it's kind of crazy. That they're actually using it, that people are becoming more emotionally attached to AI than they are to actual humans. And I understand that there's some need for that, because there are some people who generally, have a hard time making connections. But the goal shouldn't be to make them more dependent upon AI. It should be, how can they engage into, society or that type of way. But and it's also the way that, let's put it this way, it was also how AI was built for the average person. It was built to be engaging. They did that explicitly to make sure that people wanted to engage with it, and it made sense. And I'm not even going to say that was nefarious, like, oh well, we want to draw them in and suck their life force out of them. It was, well, no, they wanted people to use it. They wanted people to feel comfortable using it, and by making it agreeable and something to back them up, just made it so that people would want to engage with it more.
Right.
So it's just kind of a
it's just crazy because, again, to your point, like when you look at, what is it, Gen Z, it's Gen Z. It's a good example. It's like the environment itself, technology itself, is what they've grown up on, right?
Right.
So they had social media, smartphones, search engines, all these things that we didn't have back in the day. Obviously, even the millennials didn't really have at that time. It was slowly growing, but it wasn't really vastly available at that point, like it is for Gen Z. And then Gen Alpha, right? Is that the other one? Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha's under like 25 or 20. Yeah, 15, I think.
AI is going to be a function of their daily life going forward, right? Like it seems like, what was it? OpenAI. Actually, I just looked this up. OpenAI came out not OpenAI. OpenAI, but ChatGPT specifically first launched their AI in 2022. Within like 2 months, 100 million users. Mm-hmm. Okay, and now it's being so in 3.5 years since it came out, maybe 3 years. So many corporations have decided they need to go AI. They've either tried to replicate it, so you have multiple variations now. It's ChatGPT, right? So you have all these different versions of AI. You have like Claude, you have Google Gemini, you have Copilot, which sucks. But you have all these things out there, and that's all kids use. Like, do kids even write anymore in school?
No, I mean, have you seen the things where how they're using it, to pass tests, and then you have teachers, putting in things to double check the work or whatever, and they're.
But if the kids are smart, they send it through an AI checker as well and clean it up just enough, and then they're good too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's
But
not. And that's the thing. You can use AI to also combat AI, right? Like, but in the end,
that's why. And now teachers are going back to pen and paper,
as you should.
They're talking about literally like, nope, surprise test, no prep, no tech. You have to do it without. Like, there's that whole thing. People say, well, what do we need that for? And I mean, it almost seems like, though, as much as people hate it, it's almost like a drug, where people who will get hooked onto an illegal drug will say that they hate it, but they will use it and continue using it. It's becoming an addiction where, you have kids nowadays, and I think Gen Alpha is, they're kind of screwed because they're also, you have to look back. They were also the ones who were heavily affected by the pandemic. They lost 3 years of social interaction in person, where them being on Discord or some other channel to talk to their friends, not actually in person, interacting that way, and actually having in-person social skills and impromptu ones. Because when you're talking in the chat room or whatever, you can always do delays, right? But if you're talking to somebody face to face, you don't have that ability. You have to be able to think a little bit quicker, and and you don't have that shield as well. So I think Gen Alpha is going to have the hardest time, and it's there's the difficulties that everybody faces, like you said. There's the money part, there's the job market, but I mean, I think that I think the harder part now is, are they going to be able to adapt? Are they going to be able to make changes, or are they going to be purely dependent on?
History has shown they're going to become dependent on it. Generations get dependent on whatever's going on in their growth, right? It's a fact. Let me take that back. I can't say anything's a fact without fact checking. So I'll say it's generally it tends to be that way from what I've seen, but it's not a fact I can back up. Let me ask you this. I know we've been talking about this. And this also brings up technology timelines, right? So, because we talked about AI before that. Can you remember what was sort of the first technology you remember that adults for us were being genuinely worried about? Was there any worry that you can think of that adults when we were growing up were generally worried about from a technology? Because if you think about early 80s, you had things like cable television, right? So you no longer had to worry about turning the knob or adjusting the rabbit ears. You had video games started kicking off, home consoles, right? VHS, MTV, personal computers.
I think that there was concerns. I don't know if they were worried about it. I think that they had hesitations.
Was there anything you can think of being generally worried about? Any first technology that you thought they might be worried about?
Honestly, I mean, except for automation. There was even in the 80s when automation started coming around. It's like, I came from a family like truck drivers, so there was that whole thing of, cars will be able to drive itself, so there won't be any need for truck drivers. So I think automation was the big thing. But I mean, again, I think the difference between what we went through and what kids today are going through, especially like our kids' age, under the age of 35, is it's not, a lot of it's not in theory. You're seeing things happen now. And it's not like, oh, in a few years we're going to have this. It's like, hey, look, there's these robots now that can have autonomous and they can do these tasks, and now they're self-balancing and they can run and do all these things. It's like, oh, by the way, we're like almost there. Where for us, like the idea, like I said about truck drivers, for example, there was no concept of truck driver. We knew that it was possible. We knew that, computers are going at the rate they're going, it just made sense that this will be able to happen. But now we literally have self-driving cars. I mean, and they're pretty commonplace. It's most of it has to do with regulations. People want to talk about safety with self-driving cars with Tesla, but it's like, are they generally safer than humans? They're not perfect by any means, but are they? They're pretty much in our everyday life now. I mean, especially in San Francisco, Waymos are widely used people prefer them.
Yeah, but Waymos also have those nice glitches every once in a while where they all get stuck.
But then again, we also have humans have glitches, probably way more often. And I mean, but I think, yeah, automation was probably the closest one. But I think most of what we saw in the 80s was, and we saw it, just with like your dad was blue collar. My brother and my family were blue collar as well. So there was a hesitation or oh, well, no, you stay in your lane with your computers. I'll keep on doing what I'm doing. There was an easy separation between that type of stuff. So there was concerns that computers are going to take over but there was always this idea that we can keep things separate. And I think one of the things that's today is, and I think there's a lot of fear mongering where, you're not getting the news just from 2 or 3 TV stations. Back in the 80s, like what TBS was probably the most national thing that we saw, or CNN was just coming on. But nowadays, I mean, I just think in the reality, AI is encroaching everywhere. Technology isn't, like you said, even at a park, even at a place like fucking Disneyland, that's about fantastic and enjoying, getting caught up in a ride or an experience, walking through the castle or seeing Matterhorn, all this stuff. You still have to walk through with a smartphone. Can you get through Disneyland without a smartphone? Yeah, but is your experience going to be limited? Yeah. And so I think.
Well, how so? Because that one I want to push on a bit more because I'm curious what you mean how it would be more. Because considering I went through Disneyland without a smartphone for decades, basically.
Yeah. But today, I mean, I guess.
Are you talking about understanding wait times? Are you talking about ordering food? Are you talking about
I think it's everything. No, I just think the whole experience. I mean, think about today. I mean, yes, you can do it, but leaving your house without your cell phone. Like right now, I pay through, my Google Wallet, which I know some people be like, oh, privacy this and everything. And I understand that, but think about how often you had to go through something. And it almost feels like having a smartphone isn't an option anymore. To be able to experience things or to have the full experience of going to a park. Do you think you can go to the park today and actually have a full experience of the park? I haven't been, so I'm generally asking. So I just think generally it's one of those things where how much are you missing out where they don't have paper maps? I mean, they may still have it, but I'm just saying it's one of those things where how much more limited are you going to be by not embracing these changes?
So it's a great question. I put it this way because you're right. You need your phone nowadays. We always have your phone with you because there's no such thing as payphones anymore. So anyway, you want to communicate, you need to have a phone. So you need a cell phone, period. Right? So it's always going to be with you. As far as does it change the experience so much if you didn't have it? Mm-hmm. For maybe new person coming in who's never been there, you kind of need it because because to your point, unless you've been through the park enough and you know where everything's at, know how it's structured and everything. Like I don't need my phone for any of that. I don't even need to use my phone all day to enjoy the park. In many ways, it's better. But if I want to, because they implement things like mobile food ordering and require you to do that through the app, you're almost required to have it. See, that's more forced than you having to be able to do it yourself. Like if I could do it myself, I would. That. But I think that's where it's forced on you versus if, to your point, like your original question was like, can you still experience it? Because yes, you can. And in many ways, it can be much easier. And do they have paper maps? Actually, I think they still do to some occasion, to answer your point. And they do have wait time boards throughout the park so you can see what the wait times are. But you're right. A smartphone gives you the ease of being able to quickly identify more accurately what's the wait time for this, right? Well, I can look on the app real quick and see, oh, it's this much time. I don't want to head there real fast. So in some ways, yes, it makes it easier. But it's not like a requirement, I guess is my point. You can definitely experience it and have fun without it, but it does help simplify some of the things. I agree.
And I think that's what I was getting at. And 100% it's forced. I mean, everything, like even going to a concert nowadays, you have to have a smartphone.
Do you? Why? For tickets. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying
it doesn't change your experience. I guess I'm trying to separate between the two from what you're trying to say, because
I'm kind of saying a little bit of both because
you're saying smartphones are needed because of just how the infrastructures are set up nowadays. You can't go without it. Like
I don't know
for
if you
concerts, you need tickets, or you can print it out, I guess.
What I mean is, even for you as an experienced person, yes, you probably can get through Disneyland, no issue. You can survive a day, have a great time. But how much different would it be between having let's say you lost your cell phone right after you got in there. Would you have to leave? No, you probably wouldn't have to as long as you have a credit card, you can pay for things. But the point is that in today's world and how it's set up, yes, being forced on, even for me for international travel, the idea of having a cell phone on international travel today compared to where it was even 10 to 15 years ago is night and day. Can you do it? 100%. Can you be in the moment and the experience? I know somebody would romanticize about, oh, well, just go with it. It's like, I understand that. And I'm not saying no, but I think for a vast majority of people, and I'm talking to a vast majority of travelers who would do it, having a cell phone can easily make or break, make your experience that much better. Yes, there's certain things that you can't do. But again, to your point, like if you were to travel, you don't have to rely on your phone. You can make a decision going, I'm going to go into this restaurant or do this experience just blindly. But being able to do a grab, doing travel, things like that. It's just one of those things where I don't know if we're forced, but I think what I mean is today, the idea of rejecting technology doesn't seem like it's an option anymore, or not embracing
because it is forced. Goes back to my point. It's forced. It's forced because everywhere you go, technology can be a benefit, but it requires you to also adapt and go with that technology then. Because if you like, a lot of people may do Apple Pay or Google Wallet only, right? Like they don't do cash, and maybe they don't even want to do credit cards, and they just want to use that form of payment because it's easier for them as well. Like there's many different ways it can be done. I don't think anybody's ever 100% committed to one so far, but it's forced technology. And you're right. When you go internationally, the smartphone's super helpful for many reasons, especially first timers out there. Yeah. Like if I don't know the area, it helps because I don't have to carry a big ass paper map. So things like that I don't need, and I get more up to date real time. So there are definite benefits of why things like this work. But the negative though is when you're in the environment you're still looking at your phone for other things and not focusing on what you're at, you've lost the moment too. And so
that I think is where the danger
right there,
where you don't see. And I think that's what I was getting at when it came to something like how people have been using AI as replacement for genuine friendships. Like I said, it becomes an addiction. It becomes, it's like opiates are very important. I mean, in terms of pain management, for what I went through for my surgery and other people when they go through surgeries, general pain management, they're indispensable. Like the reason why they're still around is people want to say the reason because they work, because for a vast majority of people, they're extremely beneficial. They make life tolerable. They make it go through, like I said, a surgery for the initial 2 to 3 weeks time, and they get off of it with no problems. And then unfortunately, there are people who become addicted to it or they use it recreationally. So I think it's the same thing almost. I think when sometimes like when you go on vacation or whatever, you can get so caught up in trying to optimize your vacation. You're like, oh, I have this mapped out. So I'm going to go to this restaurant. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go do this. And like, for me, one of my favorite things to doing is everybody always talks about taking the trains, right? Taking the metro, especially like in Japan or Korea. I actually say take the bus because it lets you kind of see the surface area that you're on. And plenty of times I'll take it and then I'll just get off on a stop and go check something out. And that would never happen if I was tied to an app. So I think the hard part, and I guess maybe I'm not sure what our train of thought was on all of this, but going with the Gen Alpha, I think a lot of times they don't know how to adjust to that, or they haven't. We did that. We did the things where we're going around, like I would rely on your wife because she knew everything about Disneyland, but we also would have the map and pull it out and like, okay, well, let's hit here, then here, and we'd have to figure out our own path. Where I think what we're kind of getting at also is that there's this lack of balance, or there's lack of dependency, or too much dependency on technology, not just for companies, but for people too in general.
Right.
And that's the part where I think where the fear comes from is also we know, I mean, we saw a Terminator. We saw all these movies where technology wasn't good, where it failed humans or whatever, or backfired
Well,
miserably.
AI, yeah, AI specifically.
Yeah. Hell, I remember. I mean, I was just thinking about Aliens. Remember, Ridley didn't trust the android. Was he an android? But
Yeah, he
anyway,
was an android. He was an android.
he's
Yeah.
an android.
What about A Space Odyssey?
Yeah,
2001, A Space Odyssey. How?
going
The
back even
computer
then,
killed him.
and now
Yeah.
we're literally living that. So I think, I have to wonder though that, like you said, that fear was based upon some of these things that we first thought of way back when, in the 70s, and all these things, and those fear mongering of things causing changes that we have no control over. And now, I think Gen X is pretty unique. I think Gen X and millennials are pretty unique. We saw that transition. I've always said we lived the transition from analog to digital. We were that bridge, growing
Right.
up, then in our work, where the scary part is with the Gen Alpha is that that's all they know, and there's not that hesitancy to invest into it. They maybe have some fear of it, but
Yeah.
in reality, it doesn't show up for them as much as they may understand that, oh, I don't like this, but I'm still going to use it. It's like the not in my backyard type thing. But in general, I think that they've embraced it so much, but it can kind of be, there's a line that seems to be crossed by certain generations at this point.
Well, yeah, and I would say it'll be interesting in the next 5 years to do a comparison of countries. Countries that haven't developed the technology to utilize AI as much as, say, the US. Then comparatively take those same generation of kids and see intelligence level wise, because that's my biggest concern with AI.
I totally agree.
Is that it's not that kids here aren't going to be smart or capable. It's just that, to your point, the tools provided to them take that need to do that for themselves.
Critical thinking.
Yeah. Exactly. Being able to deal with critical thinking, any challenges they run into, if they get frustrated, kick it to AI. Like, don't push through it, just kick it over and do it. And so I'd be interested to see if there are any countries that won't be utilizing AI in some form, that have at least good education systems. Again, it's all debatable too, right? So
I have a different spin on that. I think I think the bigger one is going to be like the EU. I just heard something about how the EU wants to put these restrictions on AI, right? On the use cases.
That's the problem. AI is already out. Now they're trying to catch up all across the world with governance, how to handle it with education, all that. They don't know what to do, and it's all already ingrained itself in there.
But the issue is let's say, I'd say the EU because it came up, but even here in the US and everything, is the knee-jerk reaction to restrict it going to cause the EU to fall behind? Because if China decides that they're just going to go full blast, do all this stuff, and figure it out as they go along, I mean, what's a bigger risk? And because I think one of the things that happens is that, and again, coming from the Gen X, is there's isolationism of thinking that we as the U.S., and you can see it with a lot of people who are right wing leaning here in the U.S. We can isolate. We don't have to do it with other countries. We can just do what's best for the U.S. It's like, that's not the way the world works today. We're so interconnected and intertwined that what happens in China and the EU, whether you like it or not, affects us here in the U.S. directly. Like there is no separation. There is no way to isolate yourself like we used to be able to do. And so I think almost sometimes I worry about the opposite being true. If we don't embrace it, or we don't, figure out how to utilize it best and not just restrict it, are we going to fall behind? Because other countries aren't going to be as fearful. And yeah, it could be to their detriment. It could be something that hurts China greatly, or it can hurt whatever other country, embraces it fully. But, there's also the other side of, it's like you said, it's out of the box. It's already out there. There's no putting it back. We're not going backwards. It's not going to happen. The idea of that we're going to get rid of AI is just, it's not going to happen. We've been pushing for this for decades. The thing is, the question is, do we restrict it, or do we figure out how to make sure that we steer it in a direction that's beneficial?
Well, restrictions generally can help you steer it. right? Like depending on what guidelines you put in place, those are basically steering it towards its primary purpose, which is to only provide value in these areas, so to speak, while considered non-factors in others. Like, should schools be allowed to use it? I mean, is it any different than a dictionary or encyclopedia when we had it in the past? And the answer to me is, oh, yes, it is. You had to first have dictionaries or encyclopedias in your house. So those of us who lived during the Generation X era knew full well you had that full set of encyclopedias generally. Data wasn't updated in real time. New findings weren't updated immediately. You'd either have to get the next edition, which most would never get. Yeah. You also have to know where to look. You have to know how to read. And you have to spend a lot of time searching for yourself. Like versus AI, I'm going to type I'm writing a paper on this. I need to focus on this. Provide me context here. And instantaneous right there. Everything and structured in a way, if you want it to be, to help explain your point if you were doing it.
That's a key point that I think people miss, is that when you open up an encyclopedia or you had a textbook, it was presented in this way. You had to figure out what it meant by that. You may be able to get a second source, but right now I can go into AI, tell it exactly how I want it to explain to me. If it even, I can go to, everybody knows that you can give it instructions. I want you to talk to me this way, present it in this manner, blah, 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 provide the citations, whatever you want to have. It can answer your question, and then you can ask these clarifying questions and get, oh, you know what? I don't like it that way. Tell me this way.
But it's led by your thought process initially, the conversations.
You're forcing it to adapt
to
you.
If your thought patterns are wrong to begin with, you've just now gone down the wrong path.
Yeah.
But you don't know that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not going to correct you unless you tell it to operate under the aspect of, as an educator, I'm trying to write this. Explain it to me in a way, and if there are different ways of looking at it, it's like trying to think further through this. Nobody's going to do that, especially not the younger generation, because they're not at that point of thought pattern in their lives to even consider that as options. But yeah,
they also don't see. I mean, I think that's the youth is.
Again, this isn't about the generation. This is about the education being provided to the generations, where we're allowing these things. We meaning, civilization is allowing shit like this to run free and rampant without, again, these guidelines, without these rules. And people take it and play it. And it's a fun tool. It's great. It's fun. Look at this. I can type all this stuff and it's great. But if there's no real hard guidelines and everybody operates freely, like, what do you expect is going to happen? Like, it's just going to go crazy. And then it's hard for them to get a good sense of what's real and what's not. And that's the big problem you face today with a lot of the social media's AI influenced shit that's just full of lies. Right. Yeah. So
there's also the idea that, like, and this is, you kind of hit it on the head about the whole thing of, this isn't about Gen A, Gen Alpha.
Well, it can be the next generation too. Any generation coming up.
It's when you're 20 years old, you think that you have all the answers. Every 20-year-old, it doesn't matter when we were.
Think they have all the answers. What are you talking about? That's the teen years. That's why it's always the tough years, right?
Yeah, it's been every generation probably since the beginning of time, and that's always funny when people our age want to go, oh, they think they have all the answers. I'm like, bullshit. We fucking all did. Everybody did. But I think what, going back to the education thing, that really does scare me is even it was being said back then, even at our age, why do I need to learn this? Why do I need to learn calculus? When am I ever going to use it?
Geometry, things like that. Yeah.
The problem is, yes, you could talk about geometry, you could talk about algebra in everyday use, which it is. But it's also, like you said, there was the learning aspect. How did you learn? How did you critically think? When you had a problem in front of you, you had to figure out what to use. Like you can answer math problems in different ways. But which one is the most effective? Which one is the most efficient? Which is the most accurate? Depending upon whatever it is you're studying. And then there's also the progression of going through chemistry. Okay, where am I going to use chemistry? Well, it was this progression of you going from the day one to the very end. This progression of learning how things, by the time you get to your final, at the end of the year, how did we get there? How, I had to have all this back memory to be able to understand how this happened. Or even better is, oh, well, you know what? In this use case, I can do this because of, again, going through and figuring things out and understanding it. So even if you didn't have like a direct need to use algebra, it wasn't that. It was the critical thinking. Like you said, the hard part about AI is that it eliminates that need. It'll answer the question for you, right or wrong. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the idea that there's this reliance where I don't need to think. I have my phone. Right. And honestly, I mean, if you wanted to just dive in and be all in, you can have the phone do your whole life for you.
Yeah.
You know,
you can literally scan your homework, post it in ChatGPT and say, give me the answers. Boom. Here you go. Done.
And then when your teacher does a surprise test, you know, that's why they're also saying, like, they're changing the grading curve. They're saying homework is almost like a pass fail now for homework. You either did it or you didn't do it, but it's not like you had to do it to pass the class. You know, there were some teachers that were saying that, like, you're not getting a grade for it. You're not even getting a pass fail for it. You have to do it. If you want to pass the class, you have to turn in your homework. But it's all based upon like coming into class and doing in-class assignments without a phone.
Right.
You know, for a test. So, but yeah, it's just,
we can go on for days on AI because there's just a lot to it. I did want to save some time though for a very important topic. Spider-Man, brand new day, just came out. I know. I just saw it yesterday morning. I know you saw it earlier.
Yep.
But thoughts again, I'll say this: there could be spoilers, and we're just chatting. So just those listening don't want to hear it, you can turn it off. But go ahead.
I think in terms of ranking for Spider-Man movies, I still think No Way Home is my favorite by far. Mm-hmm. I've seen Brand New Day twice. We saw it on this Amazon sneak peek one on Wednesday and then also on Friday. I thought it was great. I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed it. It was the first time I've seen a Marvel movie since No Way Home that I really just felt like vested into. You know, like you actually felt it was what made Marvel special for years, right? Like you went in there, you cared about the characters, you cared about the storyline, you cared about what was going to happen next. Like you were generally like worried that something was going to happen, you know, to any of the characters or whatever, and how it progressed, and you felt like anxiety and everything, and that was kind of something that's been missing from Marvel for, again, since everything, since they've really after No Way Home. So, but I really enjoy it. I think if you're a Marvel fan from the Iron Man 1 days, it's 100% must see in the theaters. I also think, like, in the theater, there was a beginning part, and this won't be a spoiler, but there's a beginning part where he's going through swinging right through New York, and it was amazing. Like it gave me vertigo the whole time I was watching it. I don't know if you remember what I'm talking about. Like, it was like the first 10 minutes, or whatever. But he's going through. And he's swinging.
He did that based off the video game. He did it based off the video game, though. A lot of his moves,
so well done.
Yeah, well, and Tom Holland said this in an interview too. Is that because he plays Spider-Man in the game, they did try to adapt some of the swinging, what he does in those games, to try and kind of follow along with it too. So create some sort of unity between those and not everything. But yeah, that was a lot. I really liked it. I thought it was a great movie. I agree. I think the third Spider-Man is still the best one for Tom Holland's one. But I like this one a lot for many reasons. One, some of the callbacks were nice, that if you spotted them as well. Specifically towards the end with the Punisher, which everybody knows Punisher's in this. But as he's lining up the shot, so to speak, to me, that's a callback to the first appearance of Punisher in Spider-Man comics, because that's the exact same thing, look, feel he did there. So little subtle things they did there that kind of tie in, which were nice. But I think to your point, the Iron Man thing, the wife and I were talking about this yesterday too, is that Marvel movies do really well when they're a bit more grounded. Minus Endgame and Avengers Infinity War, which is totally different. That was epic. Yeah, those were epic. And even Guardians of the Galaxy showed that it did well on its own from a space concept, but more grounded. Like Iron Man is just a guy who creates his own stuff and starts going out there, but it's still grounded in real world mostly, right, with Iron Man. Spider-Man, again, there's some comic characters in there, but it was all based in New York. It was grounded to New York itself. I mean, you had Tombstone in there, you had Scorpion in there, you had the Hand in there as well, which I thought was really cool. And you just had more grounded characters, which is why I think the Daredevil TV series does so well. Yeah, but apparently 100%. This thing made $355 million over the weekend from North America alone. Second only to Avengers Endgame by short of $2 million. So, I mean, it was huge, and it really is. And we came out of that too. I mean, you saw it twice, but the wife and I are like, oh, this is one we could definitely go back and watch a second time. Like, it's just, it's a great story. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of good characters, some couple cameos in there that you didn't know about going into it. And again, spoiler, but Sadie Sink's character as Jean Grey, I knew going into this more than likely because a lot of the rumblings were that's probably who she is, but nobody could prove it.
She did great. She
was fantastic. Yeah.
She was fantastic. Honestly, I mean, I think from across the board, everything was like 9 and above to me. It was that type of thing. Again, it was a throwback to, and like you said, it was the grounding of it. It was a great storyline.
Right.
There was no, it just felt balanced. It felt like it was just, they wanted to make a story. And I mean, again, it kind of goes back to, and it had great dialogue. It had characters that you empathize with, you know, but then there's also like, you get like, you know, there's always those little hints to things. Something's not right here, or something's wrong. And then you're like, and then you kind of say you get vested in it. So, but yeah, I totally agree with your take. I think the grounding, and I've always said that, like the Daredevil Punisher series, I love because they are grounded. They're not over the top. And even though we know how OP, you know, holy shit, I just forgot her name.
Jean Grey.
Jean Grey, thank you. I was going to say something. I have no idea what I was going to say. Erin Grey.
Okay.
And I don't know who she is. She's definitely
Erin Grey from Buck Rogers.
There you go.
TV series. Yes.
I don't know why that popped in my head, but
Silver Spoons as well for GenX guys.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. I miss her.
Okay. So anyway,
but yeah, but I thought it was phenomenal.
Dude, so end credits. You saw the end credits. I have a sense of what it means. What do you think it means?
Not really sure. It was really vague, and I'm sure that, you know.
Well, I mean, you understood what happened, right? He was no longer on world, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a tie into Secret Wars. Not even a Doomsday. He's not going to be in Doomsday. I think it's going to be the one after that for Secret Wars, because Secret Wars is based on Battle World.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's. Yeah, I mean, I think that's been the general consensus. I think even before going into the movie, that's all I was hearing, like for the theories and everything, was that, you know, they wasn't in Doomsday, but that this was going to set it up for Secret Wars. So,
I can see him showing up at the end of Doomsday as it ties to Secret Wars, right? So
yeah.
I could see that happening, but I don't think he'll play a major point in the actual movie of Doomsday. I think his character will come in later.
He could be like that, the end credits, like thing, or even
something like late end credits or something like that. To your point, yeah, exactly, setting up. But I mean, I mean, Spider-Man has always been like that one character everybody's enjoyed in the comics itself. There's so many variations of Spider-Man comics, similar to Superman on the DC side. But one thing I did read, which I thought was interesting, I know we have a couple minutes, but Spider-Man again, $355 million, fantastic opening, as expected. I mean, and someone made a comment, its first day or second day, it already surpassed all the money Supergirl made for DC. And here's the thing I have. This is why DC struggles when it comes to competing against Marvel. And the problem is, well, first off, James Gunn has a certain style, which he seems to incorporate in many of his movies. And it can and it's great in some instances, but it's pointless in others. And so it starts to get, it's just you're watching the same movie, different characters, basically.
100%.
And so it loses it a little bit. But even before James Gunn, so DC's always been more of a darker, like the characters are picking, you know, the big three obviously are generally more darker, focused, heavy hitters type things where they're in heavy, big experiences and battles and so forth. But you see DC, like Marvel took Iron Man, mid-tier character in the comic world at that time, and he became the mainstay of the whole Marvel universe. Right. And Spider-Man is always a big character even before Iron Man. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was huge. But he's, again, a mainstay character who, well, Spider-Man's more the bigger one for Marvel, but the color, the content, the characters they face are more real world. which Batman kind of falls in line. That's why Batman Begins did so well. Christopher Nolan did a fantastic job with that too. But DC's just, I don't know. They're doing Clayface is a movie that's coming out next. That's going to bomb. Like, nobody knows who Clayface is, and it looks like it's a horror movie. And so maybe it'll get some horror genre type fans for it. And I don't think that's their intention. But, like, there's nothing developing that's going to build this up. And I don't know. I love the DC characters, and I feel there's a lot more in there. But I just think the stories they're going with, Marvel tends to transition based on storylines that were in comics originally. They adapt them somewhat as baseline. DC should do similar. So,
I think like the easy one to look at, I know we're already over, but like if you look at even, Avengers versus Justice League, I mean, it wasn't that they had bad characters, but it's like when you look at the movie, it was like you never got drew into it. You never like felt like vested in it, even though these characters. To your point, Iron Man was somebody that, unless you were a Marvel Comics fan, you had no idea who Iron Man was. Like if you saw his old costume, you'd be like, and even just a lot of people, but who Aquaman, Superman, and Batman and Wonder Woman are. You know who they are. So why couldn't they do it? I don't know. It's just funny still to me that like DC can do so well with animated series, because they're far ahead in terms of animated series than Marvel is. They can have such ones that are just, maybe it's because I always thought because sometimes imagery for comics can be a little more over the top, or a little more exaggerated, and you accept it. Where when you do live action, you just can't. So I don't know. It's just, but I think the phenomenon is just a weird one that they just feel so miserably. Like I still think Wonder Woman, the first one, was one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I thought it was phenomenal, but
it was more grounded too, because of World War I.
It was very grounded,
right? Or World War II. I think it was World War I.
No, one. Wait, no. Two.
Maybe it was World War II.
No, it was World War I. Trench
It was
Warfare.
one, right? Yeah. It was more grounded.
It was one, yeah.
It went well, to your point. Even the first Aquaman went well. But then after that, it's just... So anyway, I didn't want to bash DC per se, because I love DC comics and everything they do too. I just wish they could get better at it. I don't know what to suggest. Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody listening this week. Hope you enjoyed this week's content. We'll be back again, more than likely next week. And I'll never guarantee that, because apparently we can't guarantee it. So appreciate everybody who continues to listen, continue to like and share. Feel free to comment. And like I said, we're on YouTube as well. So take care, everyone, and we'll be back next week.
See ya.